Hello, Tom Compton here with Pursuing the Muse. This week we're talking with New York-based Dustin Lowman. We're diving into his most recent release, Invulnerable. We'll talk about the irony in the album title and go deep into some of the tracks on the record. It's an album with great hooks and beautiful, smart lyrics. We'll also talk about Dustin's love for Bob Dylan, the comedy he brings into his social media presence, and lots more. Let's jump right in with Dustin Lowman.
Take my telescope or my lucky stars away. When it came time to replace one of them, I found a little green left upon its stem. Who's got my face and I am searching for him.
Hello, Tom Compton here with Pursuing the Muse, and I am very excited today. Dustin Lowman is joining us in the virtual studio. Dustin, how are you?
Good, Tom. How you doing?
I am excellent. I am really psyched because I love this album of yours that came out 2024, late 2024, Invulnerable. So the chance to talk to you about it, super thrilling. And I might as well jump right in, like with the title. What are you going with the album title, Invulnerable?
Well, I liked that it was 12 letters. That's something about, I don't know, I'm sort of a aficionado of words that don't get a lot of airplay, and called an EP Carnivalesque in the past, and I don't know, there's just something about unusual words that appeals to me, and I liked that it was 12 letters. My name is 12 letters, and I thought that I could draw sort of a sort of rhetorical parallel, if you will, between my name and the word. And just to give you a little bit of a glimpse into the thought process, like I was just thinking about, all of the problems in my own life, stem, I think, from the common predisposition of wanting to feel invulnerable. But, of course, I think anybody running from their vulnerabilities is going to make more problems than they solve. And, so, the songs are really about, the songs themselves are all sort of explorations of individual vulnerabilities. And I wanted the album to be kind of ironic, the idea being that if you explore and show your vulnerabilities, you become invulnerable, whereas if you act as if you're invulnerable, then you become vulnerable, then there's just sort of an irony there. And I wanted, I don't know if, I don't know how apparent that is necessarily to somebody who's not inclined to think, or who didn't start from the position that I did in terms of how I think about it. But that was my thought process for them.
Yeah, I think somebody who's listening who just takes it at face value is going to kind of do a double take when you've got all this vulnerability on the album, and maybe that's a good thing, because I've found with this record, it's not only got great songs with great hooks, but it's lyrically really beautiful, and you benefit with repeat listening because there's always more to extract. So I think that when I first discovered this album, it was just checking out new releases on a Friday, and hey, Invulnerable, here's this artist with this album, and it drew me in with just the music, but then the lyrics were really smart, and I'm like, oh, this is something special. And to like quote Lucky Stars, it's a finch among pigeons. So
Boy, I haven't heard my own lyrics quoted to myself enough times to be sick of it yet. So by all means, keep doing that.
yes, it's a great metaphor, and I think I may use it in other places, but this is the first time. So I guess thank you for this album, and I think it's a testament to you and to why I really, really am excited to talk to you, is to get inside that brain of yours that comes up with such great metaphors. Like Lucky Stars, it's just dripping with metaphors. And I think it gets right to the point of, here's someone who's really vulnerable and kind of worried about what the future might hold.
Yeah.
But is still putting it out there. Would you say that's the kind of thing you were going for?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the inspiration for that song happened the day after one of my friend's birthday parties, a fellow singer-songwriter who's quite good and also a good bit younger than I am. And I was just looking around this room at people who are passionate and talented and young, and thinking to myself, God, did I miss this? Like, I'm 32, and obviously that's, I think in the scheme of things, still quite young, but it's not 22. In those 10 years, like I'm not proud of every way that every way I chose to spend those 10 years, and I found myself both ecstatic to be among these people. It's just, there's nothing more inspiring than a peer group that makes you want to be better, and these people do. So I was both ecstatic to be among them and also worried that maybe the boat was leaving without me, and I wanted to get both of those feelings into the song.
Yeah, I think that's a very relatable sentiment. Like, am I too late?
Yeah.
So, yes, you definitely achieved the goal with that one. So, kudos to you. So we'll work our way back to the album, but I think maybe now would be a good point to talk about how you got started as a songwriter itself.
Mm-hmm.
Were you raised in Connecticut?
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. My research paid off.
Yeah.
No, could have checked that one off.
Yeah, but well, I mean, I always wrote creatively, pretty instinctively, and for some reason, almost from the moment that I learned how to write, how to write the alphabet on and form words on paper, and for some reason, almost from the moment I learned it, I was very drawn to creative writing, and in a way that I can't take any credit for, because it was just innate or instinctual. Like it didn't come as a result of being disciplined or choosing to do it or whatever. Like it wasn't a product of decisions I made. It was just innate, that my urge to write creatively. And so, from quite a young age, I was writing poems and short stories and making kind of hilarious fledgling attempts at writing novels in grade school, and but just had a passion for it. And then when I was about 15 turning 16, one of my really close friends was playing guitar and writing songs of his own, and he was writing chord progressions, but he wasn't writing lyrics, and I was writing poems. Like I had always been writing poems. And so then I gave him a poem that I'd written, and then he kind of attached it to this chord progression he'd written, and then we had a song.
Cool.
And then, from him to some extent, and then on my own quite a bit, I learned some really rudimentary guitar, rudimentary chord progressions on the guitar. And then once I had a new medium, it was very easy or intuitive, I suppose, to superimpose or to graft the passion that I already had for creative writing onto this new medium. And as any writer knows, when you have a new medium, it's the opportunities feel endless. And so upon discovering that I could do that, I began to write songs, obsessively, and to learn songs obsessively too. Learn the songs that were moving me. And so spent the latter years of high school not going to parties so much or socializing, but learning Bob Dylan songs and Beatles songs and the Who songs, and then writing my own.
Nice. And then, did you have any penchant to perform them for people, or were you just learning at that point?
I did want to perform, and for some reason I never felt trepidatious about that. Even before I had any right to feel confident about it, and I go back and listen to some of my early recordings, and they are as abysmal as could be, but for some reason call it sort of white male confidence, or call it like, maybe a calling, but I always just felt like I should be doing that. I should be on stage. I wanted the spotlight. I wanted people to listen and to focus on this thing that I've worked on. I don't know why, but I always felt like it went hand in hand. And I was not an outgoing person in those years. So there is that sort of irony of wanting to be on stage and feeling at home there, and not feeling at home in social situations, which is not uncommon for performers. There's a lot of examples of that, but yeah, it was something I gravitated to very seamlessly after I had started writing songs.
Did it feel like flipping a switch when you got on stage, or?
It just felt like, oh, of course. It just felt like, maybe what it is. What I mean is that it felt, it just felt intuitive. It's like, of course this is happening. I think what it maybe was that, I was a little bit kind of misanthropic perhaps, or just the place I grew up with, I had so many issues with, and there were so many things that were normal, that were socially normal, that I just sort of despised. And I felt like when I was performing, I could sort of make the rules, and I had such a clear idea of what I wanted the rules to be, and I still do. This is still how I feel,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it just felt like, oh, of course. It just felt like intuitive.
Okay. Do you notice a difference if you're performing solo acoustic versus with a band? How do the songs come alive differently in the two settings?
I think that a band allows you to amplify in either direction, both in the direction of ecstasy and in the direction of introspection. It allows you to amplify the magnitude of the dynamics that are inherent to the songs. So when I'm doing it alone, I have an idea of what I want those dynamics to be. When I want things to be quiet and contemplative and really tender and detail oriented, and when I want it to be more of a wrecking ball type of feel. And I can do that in solo performance, but playing it with a band amplifies those dynamic choices and those dynamics. There's a lot that's, the essence of the song doesn't change much, but the magnitude of its dynamic moments do change. Those moments change.
That's a very interesting observation. It's like a gem that has more facets or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
So now, how often are you able to play with a band? I know in this music industry, it's hard to afford bands.
One.
So
that's a shame. It is so hard to afford them. I play. When I play, I'm fortunate to live in a city. I live in New York, in Brooklyn, and many of the world's best musicians live here, and I'm fortunate to play with some people who are incredibly talented, and unfortunate that I usually can't compensate them the way that they deserve, in the way that their chops and their status, entitles them to. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, great musicians get into music for the same reason that songwriters do, which is that they want to kind of they want to be part of great art, or they want to be part of art that they believe in. And when musicians find somebody who's producing art that they believe in, they are willing to do it for what that person can afford. And so, again, I'm fortunate that I have some collaborators who are willing to accept what I can give them, knowing that it's not what they deserve. So to answer your original question, I get to play with a band probably, once a month or so, maybe once every other month. And I pick my spots carefully, about that often.
Okay. Yeah, just part of the landscape that exists now. You accept this is the environment, and it sounds like you're making the most of it, because once a month is pretty darn good.
It's not bad. Yeah. And I mean, I basically use whatever money I have left over from my day job to pay them. That's just sort of how it works.
Right. So how did you get from Connecticut to Brooklyn?
By way of Vermont and Nashville and Chicago. I went to school in Vermont, and then upon graduating college, moved to Nashville to try to do the music thing there, which in retrospect was an ill-advised decision, but also it was a very, that's a whole story unto itself, but suffice to say, it was a very necessary and painful disillusionment that went on in Nashville. And I sort of reeled from it for a while. Like I took a lot of the pain. I assumed that it was my fault, that a lot of it was my fault. And so I kind of chastised myself for a long time. And then went to grad school in Chicago to get an MFA in writing. And then moved back to Connecticut for about a year and a half for COVID. Mm-hmm. And then once I kind of got my life together, moved to Brooklyn after that.
Just out of curiosity, I'm in Chicago. So what school were you at?
The School of the Art Institute of Chicago, right downtown.
Yeah. That's a solid place. My niece just recently got a degree there.
Oh, right on. What in what?
Graphic arts. She's doing stuff with studios, like motion picture studios now, and
that's awesome.
Marketing stuff. So
yeah.
So excellent. So you're in Brooklyn. What was the draw of Brooklyn?
Well, when I was in Connecticut during COVID, my whole social life was taking place here. My friends from high school and college were here, and friends from many different chapters of my past were here. And I just found myself on the Metro North from Connecticut to Grand Central constantly, and realized that, given the social urges that I had and the artistic ambition that I had, it would be better to just be there,
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So I'm looking at, on your website, you talk about songwriting being a sanctum. Can you elaborate on what you mean by that?
Yeah. What I mean is, basically I view songwriting and probably art making in general as, or its relationship with just life, like all the other moments of life where you're not making art or engaging with some kind of creative activity. All of those moments of life, your senses, all of your perceptive faculties are just channels, and through every single channel is just pouring this chaos of stimulation, right? You're seeing, especially in New York is an extreme example of that, but the things you see, the things you hear, the things you think, the ideas that work their way into your mind, the emotions you have, the relationship, the social content of your life, all of this is just feeding into you like rivers into a basin. And, the sanctum of art making to me is the moments in your life where you go into where those rivers are feeding and kind of parse out what they've fed into you, and make sense of it and then produce something constructive from it. And essentially I view songwriting in my case as, it's like a filtration thing, or a lens, or a filter of some kind, where you're filtering everything that your perceptive faculties have channeled into you into something that you can then feed back out into the world, and that you can kind of inject with your own point of view and your own values and your own ideals and your own vision. And it's sort of this feedback mechanism with the world. The world gives you this reservoir of chaos, and then you convert it into something that you feel belongs in the world.
Mm-hmm. How important is, once you've created that, how important is it for it to be validated by that world that was the original source?
It's an interesting question. I feel like, validated. I mean, it's interesting because, like, you can't rely on the world validating you, because the world has no responsibility to validate you. It doesn't owe you that. But, so I mean, I think it's important to me that the thing that I put back out be an honest, how do I put this? Like
it has integrity?
Well, yeah, and I'm just trying to put that into words, like what that means for it to have integrity. And I think what I think that means is for it to be, a truthful account of what the world did to you, what all of that stimulation did to you. And it just if it's a truthful account of that, that's sort of the job. And I mean, it's something, what it takes to produce a truthful account of that is something you could break into a lot of different, like, subcategories, but that's the overarching project. And what I've found is that if you successfully produce a faithful account of what the world did to you, it will be validated, because that's the project of art. The project of commerce is something else, but the project of art is to create a truthful account of what happened to you, know? And, so, I mean, is it important that the world validate it? I guess if you want a career, it is. I mean, and that's a whole other side of this, but just speaking strictly in terms of the creative process, it matters that you produce a faithful account. And if you do, then the world will validate it.
Right. And it seems like maybe the world validating isn't necessary, but man, it's nice if you have one or two trusted ears.
Yeah. Well, it's not necessary.
That could at least reflect back.
Yeah. And it's not necessary to have a rewarding creative process. That's not required, but if you want to have a rewarding creative career, then it is required. And that's where things get messy.
Yeah. I mean, do you have a sense, let's say you've written a song, do you have a sense like, this is good and I am happy with this? Or is there a level of insecurity that says, I need my significant other to hear this and tell me whether it's good or maybe go back to the wood shop?
Yeah, all of the above. You do have instincts, and they're accurate up to a point, and you never, no matter what your instincts tell you, you never, or you should never, in my opinion, lose that insecure voice that says, yeah, but I don't know if it's actually any good. I think that voice of insecurity is an absolute pillar in valuable creativity. Yes, you have instincts, but you never lose that insecurity, and you never should.
Nice. I mean, does it make it different when you acknowledge that this insecurity, I may not like it, but it has value?
I think it makes you less depressed when it comes around, when you hear that voice. Like, I mean, this is just a bigger thing about me and my anxieties and my neuroses in general, but acknowledging that they're you know, acknowledging that they're not things that I want to banish, you know, it reduces that sort of secondary anxiety that comes with criticizing yourself for feeling anxious. You know, and understanding its value and its place makes it easier to make peace with.
Nice. That's a cool perspective. For some reason, it's calling to mind the song after Lucky Stars on Invulnerable, A Little Green Left, where that seems to be like feeling out where a relationship is. I mean, this isn't a relationship where the song, it's the person, but can you speak to what you were going for with a little green left in terms of dealing with, you know, the inner anxiety that is prevalent in many things?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's to kind of connect that song to that idea. What I would say is, I think that through a series of events whose details are too tawdry to get into, I noticed that something I was not good at was nurturing the relationships in my life that mattered to me. My actions were not in alignment with how much those relationships mattered to me. And I also noticed that I was not particularly good at keeping houseplants alive. And I kind of saw a parallel between those two things. And I think the song turned into, kind of a prayer that, realizing that and seeing that I could change myself and change my, my habits to act in more accord with what in my life was really important to me.
Nice. Yeah, what I love about those two tracks starting the record is Lucky Stars is just like a deluge of wonderful metaphors, and then it's contrasted by A Little Green Left, which is, I mean, it zones in right away on a beautiful metaphor, and that, you know, to use the plant metaphor itself, blooms, you know, in that simplicity. So I just love the contrast of those 1-2 tracks. Thanks. So now you are in Brooklyn, and I understand that you are a big Dylan fanatic, and you do some kind of Dylan tribute, I don't know, tributes may not be the right word, show on a regular basis.
Yeah, so I am a Dylan fan. The pretentious though it sounds, it is not untrue to call myself a Dylan scholar.
Okay.
I run at Cafe Wa, where he performed at least a few times when he moved to the city in 1960. I host a quarterly Dylan review. I call it a review is my term for it. We generally the purpose of the review is to examine and perform songs from his song throughout his songbook through a particular lens. So, for example, we did songs that he had based on other songs, or in February, and I mean, I sort of provocatively called it Dylan the plagiarist. You know, there's sort of an open debate as to whether or not he does qualify as a plagiarist, and the show is kind of meant to examine that question and also play, you know, the terrific songs that he had based on other terrific songs. We may in the future do a Rolling Thunder review show. We may do a love song show. We may do a show consisting entirely of his gospel music. So generally speaking, it's, you know, it's the way I think about it is like, you know, aspiring directors or aspiring actors. You know, Kenneth Branagh's first exposure to a world audience was through reinterpretations of Shakespeare plays, both on stage and on screen. And, you know, I that's in the ideal, that's how I think about this, that we're, you know, reinterpreting the work of the most masterful artist in the form. And not trying to do merely a tribute night where we play the same songs you've always heard before, but unearth songs that you might not be familiar with and put our own spin on songs that you are familiar with, and just try to freshen and represent the greatest catalog in popular music.
Yeah, he's got a lot of material to give you that number of themes you're listing there.
Yeah.
Can you sense in a tangible way how Dylan has affected your songwriting?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, the Dylan's best work is very much the core of my artistic taste. I mean, forgetting music, but just my artistic taste in general is really heavily based around the properties of what I consider to be his most effective songs. So, for example, I think that Mr. Tambourine Man is a good one to look at, because the heart of Mr. Tambourine Man is so evident, and you can't listen to that song without understanding what the motivating emotion is in that song. It's such a yearning to be free from the concerns of the pointless, mosquito-like concerns of day-to-day life. But also, if you look at the lyrics, they're so imagistic and so, not quite nonsensical, because they do make a kind of emotional sense, but they don't make a lot of semantic sense. And, that always just had the effect on me of like short-circuiting my analytical mind, which is so, which is typically so domineering in my consciousness, but is also so, that's where your neurosis comes from, is having an overly active analytical mind. Your mind just starts, it runs out of things to take apart in the world, and so it just starts taking itself apart. And songs like Mr. Tambourine Man, or, Like a Rolling Stone, or Shelter from the Storm, or any number of dozens of Dylan songs have that effect on me of both communicating a very clear, very understandable heart, but also having this kind of short-circuiting effect on my analytical mind, my intellectual mind. And that effect is one that I absolutely treasure, and that I really strive to achieve in my own work.
Right, you can get past the intellectual walls and kind of like just pierce right past to something even more true.
Yeah.
So that's very cool. Just out of curiosity, how did you feel about the Dylan biopic?
Yeah, I felt that it was a pretty competent Bob Dylan 101 class. I felt that Timothée Chalamet's performance was the best part of it. I thought the fact of the matter with early Bob Dylan is that he was maniacally focused on becoming a legend as quick as he could, and the recessed look in Timothée Chalamet's eyes throughout most of the performance was a perfect way to capture that. I felt that, well, I didn't learn anything from it because I already knew it. I just know too much. It's like, it's not fair. It's like a professor going to say, it's not fair, but I hope that there are more Bob Dylan fans in the world now than there were before the movie, and I suspect that there are. I do also hope that by the time I'm 40, I can star in the film about him as a washed-up rock star. That's kind of my hope now, is that by the time I get to be that age, I have enough prominence of my own to make the kind of Bob Dylan movie that I would want to make.
There you go. It does kind of set up a sequel where like hard stop at Newport.
Right.
So who knows how many, because Bob's still alive. There could be 7 or 8 movies of these different periods. And
part of what makes his career in a songbook so interesting to perform is that it's so full of narrative peaks and valleys. There's a dozen films to be made about different creative moments in Bob Dylan's life, and they would all be fascinating. And that's the the great joy of performing that music is you get to just engage so deeply with the work that he produced when he hit those obstacles in his life.
Was there anything you saw that they got wrong in the movie?
Well, they got things factually wrong, but I think that was almost on purpose. And Dylan himself is so consistent in misrepresenting the facts of his own life that I thought it was maybe even artistically appropriate.
Nice.
I think the things that they probably got wrong that were objectionable were, Dylan did not write Girl from the North Country in Pete Seeger's house at that point. And I mean, that was the one moment in the film where I was like, why are you doing this? You don't need to do this. Like, this is not adding to the plot of the movie. And it's both factually, it's very factually wrong, and it's not adding to the narrative thrust of this movie at all. Why? I just couldn't figure that out. That felt odd to me. Other factual inaccuracies felt sort of appropriate, either just to fit them into the format of a 2-hour movie, or, you know, as sort of oblique allusions to Dylan's tendency to misrepresent himself. So, I think that one of the major thing it got wrong, or that, you know, it got wrong by omission, was it did not do a very good job of showing Greenwich Village nightlife in the 1960s. I mean, I think that was the one thing where I was like, why did you not do more with that? Because it was such a, you know, intensely bohemian, intensely creative, intensely dynamic, vibrant, dangerous atmosphere. And it would have played so well on a big screen. And I could not figure out why they didn't do more with that. I mean, the few moments that they did show didn't give any taste of that. And I just, that was something that I was like, you know, you had this cornucopia of lascivious content that you could have put up there, and it would have been interesting, and it would have been entertaining. And that was a big miss.
Nice. See, it's just interesting because, I mean, I saw the movie and I enjoyed it, but without that Dylan scholar level that you have, I would miss, you know, none of that stuff would land with me. So
right.
It's just interesting. My daughter graduated from DePaul with a film and television degree, and now she says she can't really enjoy movies. It's like,
well, I get that. I mean, I have the same issue with music, where you begin to interact with the art form as if you were the one who made it, and you start to think to yourself, God, I wouldn't have done that, or, you know, here's what I would have done differently, or how can I do that? Like, your relationship with it changes completely.
Yeah, those Michael Bay lens flares really hit her hard. So let's get back to the album, and a song that I love is Hangover Cure. It paints such a vivid picture of somebody struggling and aware that they're dealing with something, but at the same time they're dealing with something more, and that the initial thing is just kind of a symptom. Can you go into how you came up with Hangover Cure?
Sure. It was the day, it was New Year's Day, and I had a, both the night immediately preceding was an overindulgent one. And also, you know, this was not long after I moved to the city, and, like a lot of people who get here, the first thing I did upon getting to the city was try to have as much fun as I possibly could. And, like, you know, in every form that could possibly take, from the wholesome to the not so wholesome. And the, you know, the combined effect with it was just to, you know, it's the intake of a lot of sugary toxins that eventually your body just has to process out of it. And, that morning was kind of the culmination of that, and just feeling hungover in body and soul, and wanting to process it out.
Did the physical hangover of the point of view of the song, did that help that protagonist see a bigger problem?
Well, it certainly was a catalyst. Yeah. I mean, in that it was the catalyst. Absolutely.
it's so cool. I just love that you did that with that song.
Well, I mean, the broader thing here is that one of the great benefits of having a creative practice, whether or not you're trying to make it your career, is you get that. You can turn a negative condition into a catalyst for creation. I mean, or a positive condition, but whatever your condition happens to be, you can just turn it into a catalyst, and that's one of the great things that makes creativity a refuge.
Yeah. So, in terms of talking about searching for my twin, is there a reason you chose to make that a live recording?
That was the one that sounded best. Yeah, I mean, we tried to do it in the studio, and then I recorded a show, and that was the one that sounded best.
Nice. And that's kind of an enigmatic song that could go multiple directions in terms of what it might mean. Would you say that when I hear it, I hear somebody who is looking for a place where he belongs? Am I on the right track with that?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to read it. Yeah.
Okay. And then it fits in with the whole invulnerable theme of like finding that twin and having the vulnerability to admit that there's something outside myself that can help me, can bring along the invulnerability.
Yeah. I mean, the way that I always introduce it on stage is saying that it's a song about thinking that the best version of yourself is out there.
Well, that has a sort of somberness in a way, like yeah. But I mean that's part of art. So I mean, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So, and I just was thinking back to when we were talking about getting validation from the world with music, and it just popped into my head something that you have on your electronic press kit page. You have an Instagram video of a guy getting to listen to his new song, and
God.
it's hysterical. So, in addition to being a profound artist, you also have a really sharp wit.
No, thanks.
With the comedy you've got, I mean, I'm assuming this is through your Instagram, right?
Yeah. I love comedy. I mean, in my media intake in the leisure moments of my life is almost exclusively comedy, and it's something that I have no ego with. I don't have any ego with it at all, and I do have ego with music, and so it's harder for me to do it casually. But because I have no ego with comedy, it's a lot easier for me to do it casually, and it's also it is a thing that's sort of a pleasant thing to see on social media, especially most musicians, at least most musicians that are kind of in my peer group, most of what they post is either music or promotions for upcoming shows or something like that, and to varying degrees, that asks your audience to give you something. And what I like about the comedy videos is both that they're fun, they're delightfully fun to make, but also it's giving something to them, to my audience, as opposed to asking them to give me yet more validation. Well,
they're very endearing,
Well, thanks.
And I guess in a way, it's more sharing vulnerabilities, because it's like, it is funny when someone wants you to hear their song and this is coming out of the blue, and so it captures that. But underneath there is this other side. The guy who wants you to hear the song is also us.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think when I kind of think about like the comedy videos that I tend to make, when I overanalyze them, what I come up with is that one of them is sort of my id and one of them is sort of my ego. Like there's the craven person, and then there's the more socially, honed person, and those are always the kind of, that's always the negotiation that's going on inside of you. And you both have the craven impulse, like you want to be famous or you want to be applauded by the world, and you also know how ridiculous that impulse is, but knowing it's ridiculous doesn't put it to bed. And so you end up with this absurd conversation. And those videos are a lot of times just the transcript of that absurd conversation inside of me.
It's awesome. Who do you think are your comedic influences?
Oh gosh, so many. I mean, what's interesting about comedy for me, as opposed to music, is that music, I have a pretty well-defined set of favorites. With comedy, the list is almost endless. Like I don't, again, it's just the ego thing again. Like because I don't have ego with it, I'm kind of much more radically open than I am with music. Norm Macdonald, a favorite. One thing he and I have in common is that we're both great Bob Dylan fans. In fact, on many of his Letterman appearances, when Norm would walk on to a Bob Dylan song, and he also quoted Bob Dylan in the in his memoir. Gosh, so many. I mean, there's so many though. I mean, I love modern people. I love John Mulaney. I love Sarah Silverman. I've always enjoyed. I mean, there's Neil Brennan. I listen to him a lot. He's a pretty brilliant guy. Gosh, there's so many though. There's so many.
Very cool. You're listing like stand-ups, and yeah, I think what you're doing is almost more sketch, like like a Mr. Show.
Yeah, totally. I love Mr. Show. Love Bob and David, absolutely. And I watch SNL pretty religiously, and indeed have watched a lot of just the whole history of SNL.
Yeah, it's fascinating because sometimes, I mean, SNL can hit, and sometimes it strikes out, but
SNL does the daring thing that no other TV show does anymore, which is show you when it's not working. And I think that's what's kept it on the air for so long, is that whether it's working or not, it is at least real. I mean, and admittedly, it has become a kind of corporate behemoth, and there's a lot of product placement and whatnot, but it still shows you when it ain't working. And I think that is a huge part of what has kept people loyal to that show, whether they know it or not. I mean, I think it has a subconscious effect of, the value of that show is its undercurrent of authenticity, whether or not they're nailing every single moment of it. I mean, every other media outlet these days is showing you only the most polished, refined, manicured version of the thing they're making. SNL is not that way. I mean, it's more manicured than it used to be, but they'll still show you when it didn't get a laugh.
Yeah, that's true. That does give it more. I mean, you give it more rope to because they're out there doing it live.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, what is there anything going on with coming down the pike that you're working on that we can keep an eye out for?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the midst of working on a lot of new stuff, so I don't know when I'm going to release new music, because I have to really go into my inner sanctum for a while and like figure out what's in there and what I want to do with it. But in the meantime, I'm always playing live, and yeah, I mean, I think the best way to keep up with what I'm doing is to follow me, probably on Instagram. I think that's the best way to stay current. I mean, I always keep where I'm playing on my website too. If it's another good way to follow me. I have an email list. I send out one email a month. It's very modest. And I mean, those are the three best ways to keep up with what I'm doing. And yeah, I would just say live shows and live shows of my own music and live shows of other people's music is becoming more a part of my creative life, and those two things at the moment are what to pay attention to.
Okay, and I will add, your Substack is really great.
Oh, thanks.
Very in depth. Very you take a lot of time, and you invest a lot of yourself, and it's I've really enjoyed what I've read out there.
Thanks, Tom.
So that's what's the handle for the Substack?
Substack, the name of it is On Writing. That's just what it's called. And then, I mean, I figure if you Google On Writing Dustin Lowman, it'll come up.
Yeah, I think Dustin Lowman Substack will do the trick.
Let it probably do the trick.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dustin, I thank you so much. You have such great insights, and I mean, the way you've described your process has helped me to think about, you know, the songs I play with on my own end, and you're just a super talent. I can see the Dylan influence. I mean, I saw you did like a rundown of Springsteen albums on social media recently, which was a very cool take. I can see those artists, like those artists that you go back to time and time again, because they're giving you so much that you're not a copy of any of them, but you kind of like see the tree, you know, you're a branch off that tree of the poet who is also a gifted musician, can make the hooks. And so I think you found your calling. let me be the world giving you some validation that you don't need.
I really appreciate it. It means a lot.
So thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and we will, hopefully I will, you know, if you make it to Chicago, I'll be first in line at the door.
All right, right on.
All right. Thank you, Dustin.
Thanks, Tom.
Yep.